I grew up as a child in the 90s, and my days after school were filled with nothing but Nicktoons. Fast forward about 15 years or so, and I'm browsing the movie section at my local Walmart when I'm hit with a wall of nostalgia. Sitting on the shelf is the complete series of Hey Arnold. Unfortunately, I have a very shitty job, and honestly, Walmart wanted about $20 for the entire set, which in my mind just translated to nothing else more but 2 hours worth of work. I decided to be incredibly cheap and instead go home to YouTube some episodes to satisfy my urge to remember when times were simple. It was a mistake I won't soon forget. After a little while, I wound up coming home, popped up some popcorn, powered up my laptop, and began the search. With a simple click, every episode laid before me. Satisfied, I began watching, episode by episode. It was well into the night, and I was about to close into my laptop when I noticed a video in the suggested video list that simply read, Hey Arnold LE. I'm sure that LE must have stood for Lost Episode or something, so I clicked on the video, excited to see a brand new episode I had never seen before. At the time, I didn't see any problems. After all, those stories of people seeing terrifying lost episodes of their favorite shows are just stories, right? When the page opened up, it said in a box that the video had been removed, with that half-assed, sorry not sorry, frowning red box staring at me. Further curious at this point, I scrolled down to the comment sections for clues. There weren't that many views, so unsurprisingly there were only a few comments. The first two more or less expressed horror and confusion as to what the heck they had watched, but the third comment caught my eye. It was from the original poster of the video. He had explained that the video had been removed, but it could still be watched on his site, and there he provided a link. I always had a fear of those kind of things, believing that it would be a giant virus or something, but pounding curiosity wound up getting the better of me, and I decided to click on it anyway. It led me to a site of which I can't really remember the name. It seemed typical, basic layout with tabs and ads. In the middle, however, was a small box to click on with a play arrow. I clicked, and the video went full screen and began to play. I began to ease from my paranoia and sat back as I thought I was about to have another chapter of my cartoon memories added to my collection. I had no idea what followed was nothing short of terrifying, and would rock me to my very core. The video started out with a simple text that read, What you are about to watch is what creators of the hit show Hey Arnold intended to be the original series finale. It angered and frightened Nickelodeon executives, and the episode was never aired as such. If you cannot handle disturbing or potentially vomit-inducing imagery, then you are suggested to leave. You have been warned. I was a bit concerned by this, but I pushed it from my mind as the upbeat jazz tempo rang out, and the theme song began. It was introduced as The Furnace. The show itself started out with Arnold's teacher with the class outside, teaching them about chemical reactions and using them to launch a rocket. Harold expressed that he wanted to launch the rocket, but the teacher declined, saying that there wasn't any time, and leaves to put up the supplies as the bell rings. It then cut to Harold, Sid, and Stinky opening the supply cabinet, stealing some rockets and chemicals, and walking out, vowing to make a big blast-off. It was at this point that I began to realize something. This episode looked very familiar. I wound up getting on my phone to do a little bit of research, and quickly found out that it was an episode that had aired with the final season of the show. I was beyond pissed, but I decided to watch it anyway, since I figured my computer was already infested with whatever kind of virus that the page carried anyhow. I clicked play again, and the boys had stolen the supplies and then went behind an abandoned police station to blow the rocket which, coincidentally, Ernie, one of Arnold's tenants who is a demolition man, is set to destroy by explosives. The boys launch the rocket and it goes into the building which blows up due to the demolition. The boys stupidly believed that it was their rocket that did the damage, thus killing several police officers who didn't know the station was abandoned, and they were now wanted fugitives. This is when the thing began to get really strange. The video paused shortly. I moved my arrow to reveal that indeed the video was still playing. Soon it began again, only now the quality had changed. It seemed like a cutover. Stinky knelt to the ground, crying, exclaiming that they should go to the police. Harold berates them for this, claiming that they'll be sentenced to the death penalty. "We just killed the police, you idiot!" he screamed, clearly angry. I should add at this point that I was becoming very confused and uneasy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard fan of the series, but I couldn't recall any of this. The scene continued as Stinky begins to walk off, sobbing, and claiming he has plans to find the nearest police officer to tell them what had happened, as it was only a mistake. Harold becomes enraged, as he often does in the show, but this time he charges Stinky and tackles him from behind. Stinky begins to put up a fight, but it's no match for the much larger boy, especially since he's face first on the sidewalk. "Sid!" Harold yelled. "Help me!" Sid ran over in front of the action, clearly confused and scared, and asked what he wanted him to do. "That rock! Grab it!" Sid looked down at as the struggle continued, and sees a large rock laying in the dumpster. He hesitates. "Do it!" Harold commands, "or I'll pound you!" Clearly terrified at this point, Sid picks up the rock. You can see Sid's eyes grow large, and resistance set in as Harold says, "Okay, Sid, I'll hold him down while you bash his skull in with the rock." Sid couldn't move as Stinky just laid there with a scraped up face from the struggle, desperately begging for his life while sobbing uncontrollably. Harold begins to plead with Sid, and tells him if Stinky got away with that, they would never see their parents again. "You mix the chemicals, and you're just as responsible as I am," Harold screams. "Kill him!" Sid drops to his knees, brings a rock above his head, and begins to bash Stinky's brains in. He closes his eyes, tears flowing out of them, and screams, "I'm sorry!" over and over and over again, all the while continuously smashing Stinky's head in with the rock. He brings the rock down hard one last time. He sits back, chin tucked down in pure guilt as Harold breathes heavily, finally able to rest on top of the lifeless body below him. They sit there for a moment in silence when Sid simply whimpers, "I'm sorry." Then they hear police sirens in the background, and not knowing it's unrelated to them, Harold begins to panic. Sid is still crying and begins to ask frantically what they should do. Harold says that they need to get out of there. They throw Stinky's body in a dumpster and hightail it out of there. Stinky's blood still freshly pooled on the alleyway sidewalk. They run until Sid sees what he believes to be their salvation, Arnold's house. They climb in through a window and they drop into the basement. They scramble around and hide when they hear the sound at the door at the top of the stairs open. Harold hides behind some boxes and Sid hides beside the chair. He sits with his knees up to his chest and his head between his knees as if broken. Arnold comes through the door exclaiming to his grandpa that he's going to be doing some laundry and begins descending the stairs, not knowing that he isn't alone. He reaches the end of the stairs and hears something behind him. He turns to see Sid standing there, crying, with his head between his knees. Arnold appears confused and a little on edge. "Sid?" Arnold asked. "Is that you?" "We killed him, Arnold," Sid says softly in a whimper. "We killed Stinky and left his body in the garage. No one's gonna forgive us now." Clearly in a state of shock and scared out of his mind, Arnold is unable to call for help, and then he hears it. Footsteps approaching from behind, and then rage-induced breathing so close he could almost feel it as the footsteps cease. He turns around slowly and stares into the eyes of Harold, who beams down on him with irritation and anger. It changes scene to Arnold being tied to a chair with duct tape around his mouth as you hear the upstairs door opening. You can see the fear in his eyes as muffled screams desperately try to escape the tape. Grandpa comes down the stairs and, probably due to some senility as he's often played in the show, believes Arnold is just playing a game. He talks about the game and then he laughs as he exits out the door, laughing about the imagination of youth. As Arnold struggles against his restraints, he mutely screams for his life for deaf ears. He has no idea that it'll be the last time he will ever see his grandson alive. Just playing a game. Out of the back you can see the boys exit from under the staircase. It cuts to a point of view of Arnold as he stares to the dimly lit basement. Sid and Harold enter the shot from each side and stare down at Arnold. Sid looks scared as he shakily asks Harold what they will do. Harold looks at Arnold with that same angry look on his face and says, "I'm sorry, Arnold, but no one's sending me to jail." The screen goes black. It opens up with a down shot of the basement as Harold closes the door to the furnace. The chair sits empty now, with the rope cut up and lying on the floor. Some blood is on the chair and floor around it. Sid kneels on the ground, completely and utterly wrecked and bawling. How could we do this? They were our friends! Harold appears to feel little guilt as he explains to Sid that they needed to do it, or else they would have been locked up. The next little bit of the show is a mashup of Sid crying, Harold pacing, wondering what to do, and Sid looking at a knife of Grandpa sitting at the workbench with almost a look of acceptance on his face. It's then you could hear a slicing sound, and then worried, Harold rushes over and looks behind the staircase. There, leaned against the wall, is Sid with his throat slit in a gruesome suicide. Harold looks at the scene in shock at first, and then spitefully determination as he claims to his dead friend, "Fine! I'll do it alone then." He then hears a loud conversation coming from upstairs just beyond the door, and worried it may be someone inquiring about Arnold, he sneaks up to the stairs to listen, but no mention of Arnold is made. Instead, he hears Ernie bragging about the rest of the tenants, how he had blown up an old abandoned police station that day. It didn't take long for Harold's dull mind to register it. Then the tears began. His head flooded with guilt as he realized he murdered 2 of his friends that day and lost another, simply due to a misunderstanding. He walked down the steps and sat on the last one and hung his head in pure shame. The scene opens up all into an over-the-shoulder view of Grandpa as he opens a basement door. He shouts to Arnold that dinner is ready, but gets no response as he notices the chair at the bottom of the stairs is empty. He descends the stairs, and when he gets a closer look, he notices rope and blood surrounding the chair. He finishes his descent, fixated on the chair, and stands next to it, staring in confusion and worry. He double glances around the room, looking for Arnold, when his eyes fixate on something a few feet in front of him. It's Harold, hanging from the ceiling, swaying back and forth ever so slightly. Grandpa moves towards Harold and, in shock, unable to express any emotion. As he nears him, he puts his hand up to touch Harold, almost as if to ensue what he was seeing was real. Before he touches Harold, he notices something behind the boy, and to the right, a folded-up piece of paper taped to the furnace. He approaches the furnace slowly, afraid to find more horrors, and retrieves the note. It simply reads, "Aren't you glad it was just a game?" The camera cuts to inside of the furnace, facing out, and is pitch black as the door is closed. You can see parts of Grandpa through the 3 rectangular holes that act as a vent. The furnace latch unlocks loudly. The door creaks open slowly. Grandpa's jaw closes, and he begins to quiver as he stares at what lay inside. The only hint given is a hand with a sleeve of the same color of Arnold's shirt pulled up, and the hand and sleeve slightly soaked with blood. You look in Grandpa's eyes as he presumably looks upon his only grandson, the only remnants of his long-deceased son, as he lay mutilated in the furnace. The video then cut to black. I wound up closing the window and slammed my laptop shut as a small part of my diminishing childhood died. Everything was normal after that. I never researched the video or tried to find it again. I just really didn't care to, as I figured it was just a lousy, albeit disturbing, knockoff made by some overweight nobody in his mother's basement. After a couple of weeks, however, I decided to buy the series, determined to not let my childhood be destroyed by one incident. Sometimes my internet connection was shoddy at best, and I began to watch episode after episode until I came upon one in the last season. It was titled On the Lam. It was the episode the knockoff was based on, or vice versa perhaps. I didn't remember much from the episode, but as it played, I began to feel disturbed. The similarities between the two were gut-wrenching. I mean, The episodes were the same until the police station was blown up, but even after that there were still eerie parallels. Firstly, after the explosion, Stinky was the only one to suggest going to the authorities. Next, Arnold was being tied up in his basement, completely furnished, with workbench and furnace, mind you, by the three boys. At the moment, through his only expressed irritation and slight anger. Then, slightly later in the show, it happened. That scene. The same damn scene. Grandpa enters the basement and talks about the game Arnold is playing, but it's obvious to anyone who isn't crazy that Arnold is not playing a game, and the look of irritation from earlier is gone. The expression on his face now is nothing short of pure heart-pounding fucking terror. He shrieks the way that only a 9-year-old knowing death is upon him can, but once again it's smothered by the duct tape as Grandpa closes the door, darkening the basement once again. Except no one dies in this version. It was as if the scene had been left there, cut short and repurposed for the children's version, and it made me wonder if the video could be true, if maybe the show creator, infuriated by the cancellation of his show, initially had a much darker ending planned for the blonde-headed boy with the football-shaped head. Later, Arnold comes crashing through the basement door and begins explaining everything to his grandpa. But in the back of my mind, I think, that's not Arnold. Arnold is still in the basement, mutilated, dead, locked away in that fucking furnace.